All right, Cowboys fans, welcome into How About Wow. Welcome into Week 5. We got some great angles for you on Cowboys Jets. Why the heck did Stephen Jones tell us he believes this can still be a damn good defense? Does he believe in the players that much? Is he putting the coach's feet to the fire? How does George Pickens versus Sauce Gardner go down on Sunday? Reasons to be optimistic there. And other key matchups for the game here on the podcast today. Take it away, Jimmy.
The only thing else I got to say is, how about them Cowboys?
All right, welcome into the show. I'm Gavin Dawson from The Fan, along with New Bear Lesniewski. How the heck you doing today, buddy?
Still under construction, working to get all of this looking as good as all this.
Right on, man. Well, that sounds amazing. I do want to start the video by saying, get well soon. Prayers up to former Cowboys quarterback Mark Sanchez. You see this story, hospitalized in Indianapolis after getting stabbed. He was going to work the Colts game this weekend, man. That's scary stuff.
Scary stuff. The Sanchez, one of, I think in many ways, my favorite people to cover a little bit in college with the Mexican-American mouthpiece and things that turned really interesting for him off the field, heritage side, and, turning himself into a top, number 4 pick. And, say what you want, but at the end of the day, the dude played in back-to-back AFC championships.
Yeah, he won with the Jets, and he's got a lot of fans and friends here in North Texas. He was instrumental in helping Dak in his rookie year in a late career swing through the Cowboys. And, just hoping for the best, and a very unfortunate situation, listed as stable but with serious injuries. Okay, let's do some Cowboy stuff. Please like the video. Help us get distribution across YouTube. If you do, next time I see you, I'll bear you. I will. And if you do like Cowboys content, subscribe and make sure you check out the Wow Factor, where we upload shorts celebrating the top Cowboys plays from game day. Newber, I do want to start. We have Stephen Jones on the G-Bag Nation every Friday at 3 o'clock on 105.3 The Fan. Yesterday, he said with us that he still believes this can be a damn good defense. And I asked him if he even thought it could be an average defense considering they're 32nd a month into the season. And he kind of chuckled and said, I think it could be damn good. And I'm like, man, is this guy delusional? Why would he say that? Is he trying to justify not doing a trade in the next month? And listen, I have no problem with selling dreams to the fans. I just hope internally they are realistic. They're willing to change things up if it doesn't get better soon.
Well, I think there's 2 things at work here. The first one being he's being a good soldier. He's echoing the message that Papa Bear is putting out into the world, because that's what Jerry's been saying. He expects this team to continue to get better as guys come back and get healthy and exist as ball players in the first place. But then guys like Diggs go back to be, becoming the best version of themselves as they acclimate, through games and through reps based off, their respective comeback trajectories. And then the second part of this is that they're not trying to do anything to keep anyone out there who has a guy that they might be interested in, holding them hostage at the trade deadline. There's 4 or 5 weeks where, they're going to probably be playing this thing down, and then they're going to make a big splash. Or if they don't, the reason will be the asking price. And, knowing what they were willing to do with the Micah trade, I think there's a lot of people who think they might be willing to slip or miss. And if you're just listening, I put air quotes around those things, because I think with Kenny Clark, they still believe they got fair value for Micah, and whatever they determine that to be for anybody that they might be targeting is something that they're trying to make sure doesn't get them caught giving up more than they should.
And it really hit the fan this week with the backstory on Trayvon Diggs being, benched or not started last week. He ended up still playing quite a few plays, but there was a very robust discussion in the media, like, does Trayvon have a point that they should be playing more man? And asking him to do that isn't something that a good modern defensive coordinator would do. And then, Shoddy said this week that the coaches have to do a better job of self-scouting and adjusting their approach based on what their players do well. So I'm hoping internally that there is a lot of eyes right now on Matt Eberflus, and what are you going to do to make the front office and your head coach right with the kind of things they've been saying this week?
Yeah, so there's 2 things there for me about starting with Diggs in any of this, and what that means when you extrapolate it over the rest of the team. The first part being Shoddy's not playing around. All this culture stuff, it's not just the cool guy summer vibes. Like for them to be willing to sit Diggs down, and you saw what Diggs said. Shoddy was right. There were some things on and off the field that he needed to come correct on, and he did. And outside of maybe passing on a couple of stick your face in the fan situations, he did acquit himself pretty decently on the field. The second part of it is adjusting the coverage. And I want to sit here and say you should call and you should play to the strengths of your guys. What I'm most concerned about with this particular defense and the backfield, and really the second and third level, is they can't even get on the same page when they're all doing the same thing. Could you imagine if you had Diggs doing one thing and the other 5, 6, 7 cover guys playing zone, right? If Diggs is playing man and the other 5, 6, 7 guys are playing zone, how quickly does that go south?
I think I would prefer it more than just asking Trayvon Diggs to play zone. You look at what Vic Fangio is doing, playing cover 2 on one half and quarters on the other. You look at how he and Flores and several other defensive coordinators are doing a job pretty much showing a generic pre-snap look of cover 2, and then anything could happen either right before or right after the snap. I think your point holds that there's been so many communication breakdowns and guys not being on the same page. I would be nervous, but I think if long-term you want to use Trayvon Diggs, you just drafted Ravel, who's more of a zone player, and zone's popular, right? You can't just box yourself in. I would hope that the coaching staff would be confident enough to explore, doing things on different halves of the field.
As do I. The point, and I'm not going to belabor it, is beyond what it is right now. My big thing is like internally, these guys. I mean, you've even asked the question: are they just not that bright? Like, yeah. do they not love ball? Are they not in there watching film? And I mean, if we're talking about dumbing this thing down,
or too stubborn, too toxic, not good employees. We all deal with that, no matter what industry you're in. Young guys who don't want to change and think they're above needing to.
One word play calls and they can't get on the same page. One hand signal, whatever it is, right? That means the thing. I would agree with you from a not even just a scheme and a traits and a strengths perspective, but just like the fact that they're talking about it means that they're not all in every play. Because if you're bitch, moan, and complain, then at some point they make the call and you're like, man, they called this shit again. They make that call and you're like, well, I guess I'm gonna be out here doing cover 2 instead of chasing. Insert that team's in this week, it would be Garrett Wilson, right? Yeah. So that stuff permeates. To your point about toxicity, you don't even have to say anything. Body language, a look, and you're now all of a sudden you're in the huddle, and Donovan Wilson or one of the other guys is looking at Diggs, and they're having to say something like, "Man, come on, man, you got to do," or "Man, pat him on the ass, stay in there, buddy. Like we all got to do this together." And now they're all kind of either siding with the coach or siding with the player. And that's happening, from the huddle to the where Buffalo Wild Wings, right? Wherever they're going and doing the damn thing in their free time together. I wonder, coming out of this thing with the benching, if we don't see additional changes, whether that's trade into personnel and trade into scheme or benching and otherwise saying, why can't Bland sit out there and run with somebody if we're going to let Diggs do the same thing? And maybe you surprise some folks because you give safeties help over the top. And my big thing that I keep coming back to with all this is they don't have anybody that they trust to run in the middle, and they won't use Kenneth Murray to do it because he struggles turning and running. They want him playing downhill.
Well, I mean, granted, it was with Micah Parsons. It was with Bland and Diggs, being at the top of their game when it came to the takeaways and the pick sixes. But the best this, basic group of guys has played is cover 1 under Dan Quinn, I think in 2022. And I just think it's so hard to ask guys from being man corners and they're good at it to going and being just as good at zone. If you're not good at it, but you're great at chasing a guy around while the rest of the defense does their jobs, and then you ask a guy to go zone. I mean, I'm a big basketball guy. That's like the difference in how a point guard sees the game and a small forward who just catches and attacks it. Like having the ability to track the guy directly in front of you and the other chess pieces on the board at the same time, I don't think is something that you can really coach into a guy.
Yeah, well, I mean, you're talking about the spatial awareness element, that it really comes back to where when you're wired a certain way and you want to play a certain way, but then you've also done that and had success doing that, and then you add injury and doubt and sapping the confidence and poor play because of injury and scheme and the guys around you, and like just the narrative that you're coming in every day and hearing that your quarterback's an MVP, that you're born again running backs and George Pickens, man of the people, right? We're seeing him getting all this love on social media, giving really cool gifts to his teammates, and otherwise just being him with CD being out. Everyone else is getting all this love, and you're the reason that this team can't get it done. I mean, that weighs on a guy. So I think if you're shoddy on down, if you're Eberflus on down, I think one of the things you got to think about here is you have a chance, because of what your offense is capable of, to make some real noise if you can literally get replacement level defense.
Yeah, and I just wonder what's actually going on in there. When a team doesn't feel great about a coach, you really don't hear about it very often until it's over. And they'll defend the guy tooth and nail until the end. So internally, I do wonder what's going on up at the Star, or maybe on the airplane as they're heading up to New York here, getting ready to take on the Jets. Maybe Eberflus is a guy that the head coach in the front office is thinking, maybe we didn't get the hire right. What Eberflus is talking about with his media availability and what the beat writers were writing about this week is, he's looking at injuries, tackling, and lack of turnovers as the reason they have struggled so far. And I just wonder if he knows what time it is, if he cares, if he's made so much money as a head coach that he's like, whatever, I'm going to do things the way I like it. And if you don't like it, you can fire me. Because sometimes coaches get so confident and frankly so rich that they aren't flexible enough, and they're arrogant about it, And I know Matt Eberflus gets a lot of credit for being a humble, mindful coach that the players like, and his ego doesn't show up on the practice field. But I wonder if in his quiet times of reflection, if he's wondering, where do I need to go different? If he's even considering legitimately the things that he might be uncomfortable doing because he just hasn't done it much in his career.
Yeah, and one of the things that's really, really tough about this conversation for me is that when you look back over time and you look at the success that Eberflus has had, and you talk about when his defenses were in the top, 10, top 5, the all-pros, the takeaways, they always gave up passing yards. And most of the time, I mean, they pretty much always gave up passing touchdowns too. Like, a big part of the defense is, we're going to do enough taking the ball away from the other team and being devastating in that way, and we're just not going to let you run, that, there's a dictate and deal with outcomes. And if that was happening right now, and you were looking up and you were saying, oh, well, hey, man, they've given up, they're 26th, they're 23rd, they're 21st in yards and touchdowns passing, but, oh, wait, they are really good against the run. So it's the takeaways. And because they're not getting those, and because there's not a whole lot of mojo, because there's not been a big momentum swing where this defense has gotten credit for saving the offense's ass or swinging the game. Like, think about it. Think about the Bears game. After everything that happened early with the flea flicker and the Caleb Williams being 4 for 4 for 86 yards with 2 touchdowns when they did flip to man. What if Diggs is sitting in his zone and he has a pick 6? They might turn around and win that game. That's what we need. We need one play. Yeah. We need one big change, because as we both know, as we all know, there's a snowball effect when your defense comes correct.
That is right. As we hit the midway point on this episode of How About Wow, let's turn the page just a little bit, get to the next.
How about them Cowboys?
the next topic of conversation here on the podcast. Hit the like button, please. It helps distribution. If you're watching and enjoying the content, do consider subscribing as well. We would love you for it. Let's talk about some key matchups. And I think it starts with George Pickens against Sauce Gardner. Last year with the Steelers, GP had 5 catches for $111 and a touchdown there in a Week 7 matchup. They did not travel Sauce on GP. I was watching quite a bit of that game today, just trying to get
Eccles, man.
Just try to get a handle on what was that?
Eccles, too small. Pickens dunked on him all day.
The question is, if the Jets do decide to travel Sauce with GP on Sunday, what would you expect from George Pickens in this matchup? And I do want to provide just a little bit of context for folks that are unaware here. If I can get my laptop to share screen as I'm broadcasting live from a hotel once again. Here is the graph or whatever that a Jets media member and maybe Sauce Gardner supporter was showing today. I guess this was over the last 5 years, and it's looking at yards allowed and passes defended when covering opposing wide receiver ones the last 5 seasons. But Sauce was so good as a rookie, and in his second year, he was all-pro both of those. What has happened since then is, and Bucky Brooks wrote about this for NFL.com. He's an NFL safety turned media member. He does a hell of a job on the scouting and stuff. But maybe the way that contact downfield has been officiated with defensive backs has impacted Sauce Gardner more than other players. As the flags that have become a major problem for the New York Jets is they kind of can't get out of their own way. They do quite a few things well, especially offensively when it comes to running the ball and protecting fields and getting them some opportunities to make plays in the passing game when it happens. But yeah, after winning defensive rookie year in 2022 and first team All-Pro honors, Sauce Gardner, who was in the conversation for best corner in the game, has taken some hits among Jets fans and media members. And, from Bucky's perspective, he's just getting flagged a lot more. And maybe that's taking some of his aggressiveness away and creating big plays. And Pitt got him for like a 50-yard defensive PI in last year's Week 7 game, New Bears. So I don't know how much you should be scared of Sauce Gardner against George Pickens right now, considering everything I just rolled out there for you.
Oh, man. I said Sanchez was number 4. He was number 5 overall, wasn't he? I just checked that. So seeing Sauce up there at number 4 made me double check. So I was wrong. Get me in the comments on that. There's 3 true outcomes for this. If
You're
Sauce,
good, bro. You're good.
If Sauce runs with GP, there's 3 true outcomes, right? There's bleep you balls where it doesn't matter and Pickens is just going to be in Moss mode. There's Sauce being Sauce and shutting him down, and Pickens has one of those really tough nights where he's got 3 catches for 19 yards on 11 targets. And then there's the in-between where Sauce wins a couple and GP wins a couple, and the night looks something like, 5 or 6 of those on 11 targets and 100 plus and a tutty. And the question is, in any of those situations, can GP keep his cool? If he makes a big play, can he not get a taunting penalty? If Sauce is bossing him up a little bit, can he keep it together so that when his number keeps getting called, he makes that game-winning play late? The challenge with Pickens, right, if we're going to talk about any kind of momentum-based conversations like we were with the defense, is that if you get him involved early and often, you got him as long as you want him. That was so special about last week is it took a little bit to get him going, and then he was there. He was ready, and I think part of that is because he knows that he doesn't have a choice because 88 Club ain't out there. So if he's wrong, there's no one to really lift him up, right? And now if Turpin's out and you start going through this and making it even more of a crunch, all eyes on 3. And for GP, when you go through this, I was in the building when he was dunking on Eccles last year, and it was really because Eccles is a 4.35 guy, but he's 5'8" on his best day. And they were throwing moon balls. Remember, that was Russ's first start for Pittsburgh last year, and they were throwing moon balls, and GP was just going up into outer space. So that was a special night. There was one, his best catch of the night actually didn't count, happened right in front of me where he was toe tapping and, was parallel. It was like the catch last week, the Dak ball last week where you're hanging, your whole body's out of bounds. He was inches away from having the catch of the year. So, when you go through this, Sauce is going to win, and GP is going to be handsy. And I think some of that PI stuff, is not going to get called because they're going to let both guys fight.
Well, I don't mind that. I think Pickens loves it when guys get physical with him because he's longer. He's a lot stronger. I mean, he threw a dude down last week just right off the line of scrimmage. And he has an ability to focus on the ball while fighting and being mindful of the flop as well. I just think, I think that would probably be George Pickens, but I mean, Sauce Gardner is still very, very good, and maybe he's not the player that he was. But if you cannot get George Pickens going, now you're in a situation hoping your run game and guys like Ferguson and Tolbert and Flournoy can make enough plays. And I just don't know how to feel about that right now, considering where this offensive line is. We don't know how much affected the running game is going to be with 3, maybe 4 offensive linemen out for the Cowboys. So I think that's really the first matchup. What's that?
Turpin's out, right?
Yeah, Turpin's out and Guyton's out for sure. We're hoping for the best with Tyler Smith.
Yeah, so like if with no Turpin, then you're talking about Tolbert. You're talking about I'm just going through like what Bill Belichick would do, where you take Sauce and put him on number 2 and then double Pickens. There's no reason to do that in this game. It's just silly, right? Like we should get Sauce on. If you're a football fan, you want Sauce on Pickens. And if you're George Pickens, you want Sauce because this is a game where George Pickens goes and gets paid.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Especially coming off last week's game with this offensive line. This is a George Pickens gets paid game. This is a Dak Prescott legend game with all these players being out. We knew against bad regular season teams and with a loaded offense, Dak Prescott could light people up. Can you do the Tom Brady thing where your weapons are gone and your offensive line isn't good, but you're still running efficient offense and pushing it into the 30s? But I don't think you can bet on that. And I think at that point, you'd be hoping your defense can slow down the Jets' running game enough to keep the game in the low 20s and allow yourself to win without having an explosive offensive day. One other note on George Pickens before we move along here on how Bout Wow, big deal at the Star this week. Apparently there's these hymns, trophies that you can give here. I'll play the video a little bit, but George Pickens gave one to Dak.
How do I get the album from him?
From him.
You said you couldn't do it without the helmet. So the helmet, this is the helmet too. 2 helmets.
So this is one of those fun product placement things people do, but it's just spreading the vibes and the love of George Pickens a little bit more. And Wanye Thomas posted, if we had a vote for best teammate in the locker room, George would easily be in the top 3. That's why on narratives, you don't listen to certain media. And I think that's part of the story. But I would also say the Steelers decided to move on, and if you don't respect Mike Tomlin as a leader of men, then that's on you. This isn't a media creation. And I think, this goes to maybe Micah Parsons in Green Bay, Luka Doncic in Los Angeles. When mercurial, challenging personalities get dealt early in their careers, it takes them back, because for the first time in their lives, they're actually being rejected. And I think you get the best out of a guy for a period of time. Plus, it might just be George Pickens hitting his mid-20s. But, yeah, that's creating Steelers tears, I imagine, through Pittsburgh today.
The tweets have started where people are talking about getting fleeced for a 3 because of how well he's played. I mean, he's done. I mean, it's better than any Cowboys wide receiver in the history of the Dallas Cowboys through 4 games. Think about that. It's unbelievable. And game-winning stuff, too, not empty, hollow bullshit stats. Can you just pull that back up for a second? Because you called him long. Can you pull that back up? Do you still have it? Or did you close
I'm on it. I'm working.
Can we just talk for a second? Just leave it. How low-key enormous George Pickens is. He's listed at 6'3", 198. Dak Prescott has always been listed at 6'2", up to 240. But I mean, we all know he's playing much lighter than that. He makes Dak look like a little kid here. Look how long. And I mean, George Pickens is 101. And when you talk about him smashing a dude, that wasn't with his shoulder and his head. That's just him shut. I mean, he is like olive oil. That sneaky. Where did that come from? Snap is just unfreaking believable. This dude is 1 of 1.
He is, and if he can do it again against the Jets, then the Cowboys will be maybe out in some clean air, building momentum through Carolina and maybe thinking about putting together a winning streak. And who knows when CeeDee Lamb could be back. Other key matchups this week, New Bear, Breece Hall and Justin Fields on the ground against the Cowboys front. They're going to keep running. You'll hit them on first and second down. Maybe you'll get them to fourth down. Then they'll run a 40-yarder in like Fields did against Miami, or maybe that was 55 yards. I don't know.
And did you see that too? That was like some Xbox stuff where you're just mashing buttons and coming out the backside. Like there's not too many dudes who can do what Justin Fields does, man.
No, and then just run away from your fastest linebacker and juke your safety and truck stick your corner. I mean, it's 144.5 yards per game for the Jets on the ground, 5.2 an attempt and 5.2 an attempt. And there's a lot of talk going on around about the Cowboys defense being good. They've given up 6 rushing touchdowns. That's third worst in the league. And Fields can dominate on the ground if you do not contain the edge. So those are massive stories. Eberflus said that this week that maybe they learned some stuff playing against an elite running quarterback in week 1 against Jalen Hurts. And I certainly hope so, because I think this is a coin flip game. I've been going back and forth all week on who I think is going to win.
Dude, the Jets, their record is, I know the great thing is, what did Bill Parcells say? You are what your record says you are. And their record says they're not a good football team. They're dangerous. And the big thing for me is this is one of those weeks where them being a zone team could actually end up being a blessing in disguise, because you're not going to have who's guarding Garrett Wilson. We're not having that conversation. But then at the same time, who's covering Breece Hall out of the backfield? Because you don't trust any of these linebackers right now. Breece Hall could have one of those vintage LaDainian Tomlinson, Marshall Faulk type days out of the backfield, man on man. So this should be an opportunity to see if this team can communicate and keep everything in front of them, bend but don't break. Even if it is death by 1,000 paper cuts, you're making them kick field goals instead of score touchdowns. Garrett Wilson, Breece Hall, and then the other one on the medal stand for me, with all these offensive line injuries, bro, Quinnen Williams looks like he's back to being Quinnen Williams for the most part, and that Will McDonald is going to hunt.
Yeah. Yeah, last week against Green Bay, you got to go against defensive tackles and linebackers that are more built for speed and cutting through gaps. But Quinnen Williams is built to throw you down and walk over your body on the way to the quarterback. And last week, what's his name? TJ Bass had a good game, but he still got thrown down by a 280-pound defensive tackle from Green Bay. Hoffman, can be Swiss cheese. He can get beat with speed or power. So you have to be worried about a little bit different kind of player coming right up the middle into Dak's face. Will that change their ability to have the great timing and the execution that they did against the Packers? I think Quinnen Williams against the interior guys, especially if Tyler Smith doesn't play. Broadus made a great point yesterday that Quinnen likes to line up strong side, so you can pretty much dictate by putting the tight end on the left that he would be over Tyler Smith, or at least within a reach of Tyler Smith. But if you take Tyler out, I think all bets are off as far as how chaotic this could get in front of Dak.
Yeah, I mean, you're double teaming Quinnen Williams center and guard wherever he is every play, which puts your left tackle, if Guyton's good or if we see Nate the Great, right? The speed. So Will McDonald the fourth, he is an IV, he's going to be chasing 4 just like Micah Parsons was. I mean, that's going to be the big thing to watch, is Dak has to be as on his P's and Q's as he was being worried about Micah with this front, because, we've seen him. I mean, they gave the Pittsburgh Steelers hell.
Yeah, they did. And I've been trying to convince people all week long, yes, this team is 0-4. Yes, their defense isn't what it used to be, but this Jets team can really hurt you. I mean, it's really just them shooting themselves in the foot on why they're not 2-2. I think maybe they're not a 500 team at the end of the year.
I mean, dude, they could be 3. The Bills are the only team that bossed them, dude. I mean, the Steelers got them late and end up winning by 2. The Bucks only beat them by 2. And the Dolphins, that was a 1-score game where, to your point about shooting them in the foot, I know they scored late, but I mean, that was a winnable game for them.
Yeah.
I mean,
okay. Just wanted to get these roster moves in from John Machota. Pardon me. Cowboys have placed Malik Hooker on injured reserve with his toe. They have signed safety Elijah Clark to the active roster. He was pretty good in camp. They've also elevated receivers Jalen Brooks and Jalen Cropper from the practice squad. I think Cropper is going to be their slot guy. Carson and Mingo did return to the 21-day window this week and were practicing. They'll remain on injured reserve, designated to return. So that kind of gets you up to speed on what this roster is going to look like Sunday at noon, Texas time.
Yeah, they got to win this game. They got to win the next two. You know, this is a stretch where we talked about in the ramp up to the bye, they got to handle some business. You know, Jets are tough, but I also think that Dak and company know that they need this one in terms of you want 10 wins. This has got to be one of them.
Official prediction for me, Cowboys win 24-20. I'm saying it was a difficult conversation week. The head coach to the DC, maybe the front office to the DC, and a lot of different coaches to players trying to get everybody on the same page. Because if you can't get it handled against Justin Fields well and they put up 30+ on you, I think it's over at that point. You're going to be looking at trades if you want any sort of hope. Because if you can't fix it under this amount of adversity and urgency, it just won't be fixed.
Well, and the big part of it is, I mean, I'm as high on Garrett Wilson as anyone in the NFL. I think he is low-key the most slept on, one of the best, like, true professional receivers. I mean, period. I love five. Then it's Josh Reynolds, Arian Smith, Alan Lazard. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, physical.
I mean, don't get me wrong. Mason Taylor's a guy that I've been.
Yes, good rookie.
You've been waiting for Mason Taylor to break out, and I think that was probably the thing that was, if there was a Mount Rushmore, I would have said who's going to run. If you're worried about who's going to run with Breece Hall, then who's going to run in the seam with Mason Taylor, because he's just got really, really, really unique ability. And at the same time, you go, it's two guys. Like, you're gonna. This isn't a team where either side of
I get your point.
Side of the ball has like five dudes you got to worry about, but the two dudes that you got to pay attention to are as good as it gets.
I get your point that they're not big names, but I think versus busted coverages or speed, like the rookie Arian Smith has, he ran more mid 4.3s. If you're spending too much time on Garrett Wilson or you do have communication breakdowns, I think these guys can definitely hurt you. And if you don't pressure Justin Fields and guys are open, he will absolutely throw an absolute dart to the dude, and he's going to hurt you for chunk plays. All righty. We will be back Monday with instant overreaction takeaways on this game. Again, we'd love it if you can subscribe to the channel and go find our short series, The Wow Factor, where we celebrate and grade all the wow-worthy plays from Cowboys game day. Till next time, for New Bear, I'm Dawson. How about wow? Sorry. How about wow?
Hey, real quick before you end the